Most people chase loyalty like beggars, hoping, pleading, and waiting. But loyalty is never given freely. It is engineered. In this video, we expose the brutal truth: fear can force obedience, but only a wise strategist can create loyalty that endures, even in the shadows of ambition. In every kingdom, whether built on gold, authority, or influence, one question haunts the ruler: who will remain when power trembles? Loyalty is not a moral virtue, it is a psychological calculation. It thrives not in the hearts of the virtuous, but in the minds of the self-interested. Tonight, we descend into the cold anatomy of devotion, where fear may control men temporarily, but understanding their nature binds them permanently. Prepare to look beyond sentiment, beyond ethics, and beyond comfort. We enter the realm where loyalty is crafted, shaped, and secured with the precision of a surgeon and the ruthlessness of a sovereign. Consider this truth: people are never loyal to you, but to the advantage they believe you embody. Remove the comforting illusions, and the pattern becomes unmistakable. The merchant seeks stability, not your smile. The soldier seeks meaning, not your glory. Even the quiet ally lurking in the shadows responds not to admiration, but to the opportunities your presence unlocks. When you finally see loyalty as a calculation rather than a virtue, you begin to approach power with the precision required to hold it. Ask yourself this: what does each person around you hunger for? Security, recognition, influence, escape. Every individual carries a private need, often buried beneath habits and masks. Your task is to discover it. Once you identify someone's true appetite, you gain leverage more stable than fear. Think of Caesar, who understood that Rome's crowds did not crave speeches but certainty. He became the provider of what they lacked, and in doing so, secured a loyalty deeper than any oath. But this principle extends into ordinary life as well. The colleague who appears supportive does so because something in your presence serves their ambitions. The friend who defends you instinctively gains emotional value from the alliance. Loyalty is never abstract, it is a quiet exchange. The mind keeps score even when the mouth declares devotion. So if you desire loyalty that endures, become the element others cannot easily replace: competence, certainty, protection, or direction. When you represent a rare benefit, loyalty forms naturally around you. History's most enduring power brokers understood this perfectly. In the shifting courts of Renaissance Italy, survival belonged to those who made themselves indispensable. They were not the loudest, but the ones who delivered results no rival could match. They fulfilled psychological needs: clarity, security, ambition, and thus anchored themselves inside the minds of the powerful. When you become essential to another person's advancement, their loyalty feels voluntary, though it is anything but. What they cling to is not you, but the stability your presence constructs. Yet subtlety remains crucial. People instinctively resist anyone who seems to manipulate their desires too openly, so you observe quietly. You study what wounds them, what excites them, what they avoid. These reactions reveal their internal architecture more clearly than their words ever will. Once you understand this structure, you offer what they lack: guidance, recognition, reassurance, or opportunity. To them, this feels like gratitude. To you, it is deliberate strategy. You are not controlling them. You are shaping the conditions in which loyalty becomes the most advantageous choice. But generosity must be measured. Give too much, and you breed dependence that slowly transforms into resentment. Give too little, and loyalty never forms. The masters of power understood balance. They provided stability, but not complete safety; opportunity, but not independence. This was not cruelty, but architecture. Humans stay loyal when their interests align with your presence. Your task is to maintain that alignment without appearing to enforce it. When someone believes they choose you freely, their loyalty becomes far stronger than anything compelled through fear. In modern life, the pattern remains identical. Those who rise in organizations are often not the most talented, but the ones who fulfill the unspoken needs of those above them. Certainty, order, simplicity. In relationships, loyalty forms around emotional currency rather than declarations. And socially, People follow whoever provides identity or aspiration. So ask yourself, what rare value do you offer? What void do you fill that others cannot? Once you define it, you cease being replaceable. You become a source, and people protect their sources fiercely. Remember this as you advance into deeper strategies of influence. Loyalty built on self-interest is not fragile. It is adaptive. It bends with circumstance, yet remains anchored to the value you provide. Do not chase devotion rooted in emotion. Such attachments dissolve under pressure. Instead, craft relevance so strong that aligning with you becomes the most rational choice available. When people calculate their future and see you as the axis upon which their advantage turns, their loyalty acquires weight, continuity, and momentum. But this understanding is only the foundation. What follows next will reveal how to bind loyalty not merely to benefit, but to dependence itself. Prepare yourself for what comes next now. Consider this: loyalty grows strongest not where power is absolute, but where dependence is artfully crafted. You have observed it countless times. Those who need you are far more predictable than those who admire you. But need is not something to inspire. It is something to engineer. Ask yourself, how often have you seen a capable subordinate suddenly drift away when they no longer required your guidance, or a friend turn indifferent once they found another source of advantage? Need is the soil in which loyalty takes root, and your task is to cultivate it deliberately, with precision and without mercy. Look to the courts of Florence, where intrigue was an art and survival demanded strategy. Princes did not rely solely on fear to bind their allies. They constructed webs of dependency. A noble allowed to profit only if he remained close. A general whose victories were contingent on the prince's favor. Merchants who could thrive only under the protection of a particular household. In this system, loyalty was not abstract devotion. It was rational calculation. Remove the benefits, and the allegiance vanished. Offer them consistently, and the allegiance becomes inseparable from the individual's self-interest. You must understand the psychology at play. Humans are not naturally inclined to serve. They follow when their own stability, ambition, or comfort is at stake. Fear can compel obedience, but it is brittle. Dependency, however, is enduring. A man who depends upon you for opportunity will think twice before defying you. A person who relies on you for protection will measure risk more cautiously. And here lies the subtlety: the bond must appear voluntary. If one senses coercion, resistance arises. But if you become the source of something they cannot secure elsewhere, be it recognition, protection, or access, their loyalty feels like choice, even as it is engineered. Consider the example of a general commanding an army. Soldiers will march for gold or fear of punishment. Yet those same soldiers will endure hardships and fight loyally when they see the commander as indispensable to their survival, advancement, or honor. History is filled with leaders who understood this principle. Alexander the Great did not simply inspire fear. He cultivated dependence through rewards, promotions, and strategic allocation of privilege. His men were bound not just by orders, but by the sense that their well-being and future were inseparable from his presence. In contemporary life, the principle is identical. A subordinate who thrives only under your guidance is less likely to abandon you. A client who cannot access a service or opportunity elsewhere will cling to your favor. Even in social circles, those who gain identity, status, or security through your influence become loyal without needing reminders or ultimatums. You are no longer merely a participant in their lives. You are the axis around which their ambitions, stability, or comfort rotates. Yet caution is required. Dependence must be cultivated with finesse, not cruelty. Push too hard, and you provoke resentment or rebellion. Push too lightly, and the bond remains weak, easily broken when another source appears. Observe carefully who relies on you subtly, without complaint, and who pretends need but secretly seeks alternatives. This discernment allows you to focus resources, attention, and favors on those whose dependence will yield the most enduring loyalty. This strategy also exploits perception. When people recognize that leaving you would cause them discomfort, inconvenience, or loss, their loyalty solidifies, but it must never be seen as manipulation. The most successful dependency is invisible, woven into the natural flow of events, appearing as circumstance rather than design. This is how the ruler ensures obedience without open oppression, how the manager secures commitment without coercion, how influence becomes invisible yet absolute. Ask yourself now, who around you depends on you without knowing it? Who will calculate their allegiance and choose you because it is rational, safe, and advantageous? The most powerful loyalty is not given, it is structured, cultivated, and reinforced in ways that seem ordinary, inevitable, natural. To create it, you must step into the mind of others, anticipate their needs, and position yourself as the indispensable solution. And yet, this is only the beginning. Dependency alone is not mastery. There is a deeper layer, an architecture of loyalty that binds hearts and minds beyond calculation, where allegiance becomes instinct, where leaving feels impossible, where your control is invisible, and yet absolute. What is this hidden layer? We will uncover it in the next segment. Consider this: fear may bend the body, but respect commands the mind. One can terrify a crowd with threats, punishments, and intimidation, and yet, when the moment passes, the obedience dissolves. True loyalty, the kind that endures beyond immediate pressure, is anchored in perception. Perception of competence, inevitability, and authority. Ask yourself, do people follow you because they fear reprisal, or because they believe in your inevitability, your decisiveness, your mastery of circumstances? The difference is the difference between fleeting control and lasting dominion. History offers countless lessons. Look to the courts of Renaissance Italy, where petty tyrants relied on brute force and were quickly overthrown, and compare them to rulers like Lorenzo de' Medici, who combined firmness with an aura of respect. Lorenzo understood that the respect of allies, of rivals, even of enemies, multiplied his power far more effectively than fear alone ever could. Fear forces obedience, but respect ensures it persists when the immediate threat is absent. Ask yourself, which do you desire? To be obeyed, or to be remembered? The psychology is clear. Fear provokes a defensive mind. It triggers avoidance, resentment, and in many cases, sabotage. People obey, but they do not commit. Respect, by contrast, provokes admiration, calculation, and voluntary alignment. Those who respect you weigh your judgments as correct, follow your direction as logical, and support your authority as inevitable. When respect is achieved, the obedience you command no longer requires enforcement. It flows naturally from the perception that following you is rational, necessary, and advantageous. Consider a general in battle. Threats will ensure soldiers show up, but will they fight with courage, initiative, and loyalty? No. Yet, a commander who demonstrates skill, decisiveness, and a strategic mind earns the respect of his troops. Alexander the Great, for example, inspired loyalty not merely by punishing disobedience, but by showing foresight, winning impossible battles, and rewarding merit. His men followed him across deserts and rivers because they respected his genius, not because they feared what would happen if they failed. Respect creates internalized obedience, fear only external compliance. And yet, respect is not granted, it is earned and carefully constructed. You cannot command it by proclaiming authority or flaunting superiority. It must be demonstrated repeatedly, in ways that others can perceive but cannot easily challenge. Decisions must be decisive, actions consistent, competence visible. The most effective leaders manufacture an aura of inevitability, of precision, so that even those who might oppose them perceive resistance as futile. People respect what they cannot easily overcome, and they align themselves with what appears unshakable. This principle applies beyond armies and courts. In business, those who lead through fear may see compliance in meetings, but innovation, loyalty, and initiative rarely follow. The executive who is respected, whose decisions are trusted, whose presence commands gravitas, attracts commitment that cannot be enforced. Employees, clients, and allies align themselves with someone whose authority feels not just legitimate, but inevitable. In social and personal spheres, the same rules apply. You do not need to intimidate, you need to cultivate a presence that cannot easily be ignored or opposed. Observe carefully. Respect is a psychological contract, silently understood. Fear can be immediate, but ephemeral. Respect is enduring, self-reinforcing. When someone respects you, they police their own obedience. They anticipate your expectations, they adjust their actions in advance, and they advocate for you even when unobserved. The power of respect is invisible, yet absolute. The wise strategist understands this distinction. Ask yourself now, do people follow you because they must, or because they see you as the natural arbiter of outcomes, the inevitable force whose decisions shape reality? This question is not rhetorical. It defines the difference between temporary authority and lasting power. But respect, like all power, is fragile if mismanaged. What happens when respect wanes, when perception falters and the image of inevitability cracks? There is a deeper layer, an unseen mechanism that ensures respect transforms into enduring allegiance, ensures your authority becomes inseparable from their choices, even when fear and benefit no longer operate. And that is the secret we will uncover next. A method to make respect immutable, to convert admiration into instinctive loyalty, to bind minds without chains so that they serve you willingly, yet inevitably. Consider this: loyalty is rarely earned through constant praise. It is shaped through calculated recognition, dispensed with precision, unpredictability, and purpose. Humans are creatures of expectation. They adapt quickly to routine kindness, predictability, and generosity. Praise becomes invisible, rewards lose weight. The master of influence understands this law and uses it to forge loyalty that is not merely habitual but strategic. Ask yourself, do you cultivate devotion or merely feed entitlement? History offers the clearest examples. Look to the courts of Louis XIV, the Sun King. He did not flatter endlessly, nor did he reward without discretion. His courtiers hungered for his favor precisely because it was scarce, unpredictable, and powerful. When the king bestowed recognition, it carried immense weight. When he withheld it, ambition stirred quietly, yet his authority remained unchallenged. The lesson is simple: humans value what they must earn, and loyalty grows strongest when the reward is neither guaranteed nor abundant, but meaningful, rare, and strategically deployed. The psychology is subtle yet unyielding. Predictable rewards dull the mind, erode respect, and breed complacency. In contrast, the unpredictable, carefully timed reward creates anticipation, desire, and dependency. People begin to orient themselves around your favor. They work harder, think faster, and calculate decisions to align with your approval. You are no longer simply a figure of authority, you are the axis of their motivation. They measure success through your recognition, and in doing so, their loyalty becomes self-reinforcing. Consider the military commanders of antiquity. Caesar did not reward every soldier equally. He singled out acts of valor, sometimes in public, sometimes in secret. The unpredictability of his recognition forced soldiers to remain vigilant, to perform consistently, to seek favor through their own initiative. Those who sought to exploit him or act without merit found themselves overlooked. Recognition, when wielded as a tool, becomes more than acknowledgement. It becomes control. Yet, strategy demands subtlety. Too much reward dilutes value, too little sows resentment. You must calibrate precisely, understanding not only who to reward, but when and in what manner. Observe the temperament of those around you. Some crave public acclaim, others value private acknowledgement. Some respond to praise with loyalty, others with ambition sharpened like a blade. The master strategist adapts his method to each personality, and in doing so, ensures loyalty is both broad and deep, binding minds in ways fear alone cannot. This principle extends to every sphere of influence. In business, the executive who distributes bonuses indiscriminately fosters entitlement, not allegiance. In social networks, the friend who overpraises loses impact. In personal relationships, constant validation can breed complacency, even contempt. The loyal heart, however, thrives on measured reward, on recognition that feels earned, significant, and rare. When aligned properly, this creates a network of individuals whose actions are guided by the desire to maintain your favor. You shape behavior not by command, but by expectation, by the subtle pull of anticipation, by the internalized calculation of advantage. And yet, this strategy works only when combined with perception. People must believe that your approval is both meaningful and limited, that earning it is an achievement, and losing it carries consequence. The most skilled leaders create an aura in which recognition itself becomes a scarce resource. Your favor is a currency, and those who seek it adjust their efforts accordingly. You do not coerce, you orchestrate. Your power becomes invisible, yet undeniable, operating through desire rather than compulsion. Ask yourself now, how many around you act out of habit, and how many act out of calculated desire to remain within your favor? The difference is loyalty that survives hardship, temptation, and opportunity. This is the mastery of influence, the architecture of allegiance, when people work, act, and think through the lens of your approval. You hold control not because you demanded it, but because you engineered it. But this is only the beginning. Recognition alone is not enough. There exists a deeper mechanism, a psychological lever that converts desire for approval into instinctive loyalty, binding hearts and minds beyond conscious calculation. The next step reveals how to intertwine reward, perception, and influence so that allegiance becomes as natural as breathing, and as inescapable as fate itself. Consider this: people follow those who reflect what they wish to see in themselves. Loyalty is not built merely through fear, reward, or need. It is anchored in identity. Humans are creatures who seek mirrors. They align with the image of the person they aspire to become, consciously or not. Ask yourself, who do the people around you wish to be, and are you that reflection? If you understand this, you do not command loyalty, you evoke it. History provides endless illustrations. Look to the courts of Florence and the intrigues of princely families. Princes who survived, thrived, and extended their influence were those who projected qualities their allies admired, feared, or desired to emulate. Lorenzo de' Medici was not merely a patron, he was a reflection of ambition and refinement, a living example of what power could grant. Those who served him saw in him not just a ruler, but a model of their own potential ascent. Their loyalty was not coerced. It was drawn, magnetic and voluntary, because in following him, they followed an idealized version of themselves. Psychologically, the mechanism is subtle yet profound. People seek validation of their identity in others. If you reflect their ambitions, values, or desired traits, they see in you a pathway to their own self-realization. This is why loyalty based on identity is stronger than loyalty based on fear or reward. It feels personal, organic, and self-justified. They are not obeying you. They are completing themselves through alignment with you. The more accurately you reflect their ideals, the more inseparable you become from their perception of self. Consider military history. Alexander the Great did not merely demand obedience, he embodied the traits his soldiers aspired to: courage, ingenuity, and invincibility. When a soldier aligned his action with Alexander's example, he was not simply following orders, he was participating in the narrative of his own potential greatness. Loyalty, in this sense, was internalized. Each man saw in Alexander a reflection of what he might become, and this created a bond far deeper and more durable than fear, need, or reward alone could achieve. In practical terms, the strategy is deceptively simple: understand the aspirations of those around you and become the mirror in which they see their ideal self. But simple is not easy. It requires observation, subtlety, and adaptation. Observe the desires, ambitions, and insecurities of those whose loyalty you seek. What qualities do they admire? Which traits do they aspire to? Then, craft your presence to embody those traits. Not superficially, but strategically, with enough authenticity that it convinces even the most skeptical mind. People will unconsciously align themselves with the reflection you present. They will defend you, follow you, and act in your interest because in doing so, they are defending, following, and acting in the interest of the self they aspire to become. This method is especially potent because it disguises influence as choice. Unlike fear, which provokes resistance, or reward, which can create expectation, Identity reflection makes alignment feel voluntary. Your influence becomes invisible. People believe they act freely, yet every decision is subtly guided by the reflection they see in you. This is power dressed as admiration, obedience disguised as aspiration. Even in modern contexts, this principle holds. The leader in a corporation, the mentor in a social circle, the influencer in a network. They succeed when they embody the traits their followers wish to internalize. The follower's allegiance becomes instinctive because it is intertwined with the construction of their own identity. Every action they take in support of you feels natural, inevitable, and self-justified. But there is danger. Misread the reflection and loyalty fractures, project traits they do not aspire to, or fail to embody what they secretly crave, and your influence diminishes. Loyalty built on identity is precise. It requires careful study and continual adjustment. Observe constantly, adapt ruthlessly, and maintain the mirror's fidelity, for even the slightest distortion can shatter the connection. Now, pause and reflect. Whose ideal self are you currently reflecting? Whose loyalty depends on the image you present, consciously or unconsciously? Understanding this principle is only the beginning. There is a deeper layer, a method to bind this reflection to desire, to need, to dependence, so that loyalty becomes instinctive and self-reinforcing. In the next segment, we will reveal how to make the mirror itself a tool of unbreakable allegiance, where leaving feels impossible and following becomes the only rational choice. Power is rarely seized through force alone. True control is invisible. It thrives in the spaces between desire and perception, in the gaps where people believe they act freely. They follow you not because you demand it, not because you reward it, but because you have engineered the conditions for them to see you as indispensable. Ask yourself who obeys you out of fear, and who obeys you because they believe it is their choice. Which loyalty lasts when opportunity tempts and threats fade? The answer is simple, yet brutal. Influence rooted in psychology endures. Influence rooted in cunning outlives brute force. Observe, mirror, reward strategically, create need, and cultivate respect. Every mind you shape becomes a tool of power. Every subtle alignment strengthens your dominion. This is not kindness. This is architecture. This is mastery. Now, reflect and act. Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to uncover deeper Machiavellian strategies, and share this knowledge. Power grows when it spreads quietly, deliberately, and intelligently.